As terrorists in the Middle East and North Africa threaten attacks worldwide, the president lashes out at a domestic employer over Obamacare, and critics quickly react to a goofy video. This is Special Report. Good evening. Welcome to Washington. I'm Brett Baer. With just 3 days to go in the Obamacare open enrollment period, President Obama is throwing down with one of the nation's most high-profile retailers, which says he is totally off base. All this comes as terrorism and insurrection threaten portions of the Middle East, Asia, and North Africa tonight. And the latest presidential video project, well, it's getting a lot of attention, but perhaps not in the way the White House intended. Correspondent Peter Ducey has the story.
Who needs the press pool when you've got a selfie stick? In a new BuzzFeed video, the leader of the free world makes faces, draws pictures.
That's pretty good.
And enjoys milk and cookies. Or tries to.
Thanks, Obama.
But the president had a point.
Deadline for signing up for health insurance is February 15th.
The purpose of this video is to remind people that there are only 3 days left in the open enrollment period.
In many cases, you can get health insurance for less than $100 a month. Just go to healthcare.gov.
And that's not all. In a more serious sit-down with BuzzFeed, the president picked a fight with Staples, accusing the office supply chain of gaming the system, reducing some employee shifts to 25 hours a week so they don't have to provide health insurance.
But when I hear large corporations that make billions of dollars in profits trying to blame our interest in providing health insurance as an excuse for cutting back workers' wages, shame on them.
But Staples says the president is flat out wrong and that, quote, the initial story was misleading as our policy regarding hours for part-time employees is more than a decade old. It predates the Affordable Care Act by several years. It's unfortunate that the president is attacking a company that provides more than 85,000 jobs and is a major taxpayer. Meanwhile, the president's critics say if there's a problem, he should look in the mirror.
Well, the surprise is just that the president was so audacious as to come out and blame a specific company for problems that he himself created.
A brand new Fox News poll shows 53% of voters disapprove of the president's handling of health care, but supporters of the law say that people are coming around.
There might be isolated incidents of business being opposed to certain aspects of Obamacare. I think we've seen that business has backed up Obamacare in the high court in the challenge that's currently going on this term with the justices.
Now there's a new issue, as critics wonder why the president participated in such a silly video with so many serious items on his agenda. The New York Times is using the word humiliation in their summary, and the Washington Post, with a tongue-in-cheek blog, has ranked these images in the order they diminish the presidency, writing, quote, it's just Obama being a weirdo.
YOLO, man.
Some people love it, some people hate it, but regardless, this video made history with President Obama becoming the first commander-in-chief to perform a selfie stick shtick.
Peter, thank you. So, the president's getting scorched, as you just heard, by even normally supportive media tonight. Fox News media analyst and host of Fox's Media Buzz, Howard Kurtz, is here with reaction. Good evening, Howie. So what do you make of the president joining in on this skit?
Well, it's a coup for BuzzFeed, and Barack Obama is the pop culture president, hanging out with Zach Galifianakis or those wacky YouTube stars, much like Bill Clinton used to do, playing the sax on Arsenio Hall or talking about his underwear on MTV. And I've been known to shoot a few imaginary hoops when you're not looking, Brett. But some of what the president was doing, we're seeing it here, just made me wince. I mean, sticking out his tongue, practicing February in front of the mirror, just seems at times he's more interested in being the entertainer-in-chief.
So what do you think the White House stands to gain from all this?
Obviously, Brett, the president hopes that if this video goes viral, he can perhaps persuade some more younger people to sign up for Obamacare. But we're told that this was shot on the same day that it was confirmed that ISIS had killed the hostage Kayla Mueller. And so we're in a very sober and serious time in the war on terror. And some of these antics can just seem a little frivolous.
Yeah. Howie, thank you.
Thanks.
We appear to be no closer tonight to getting this year's funding for Homeland Security. Chief Congressional Correspondent Mike Emanuel tells us the House and Senate are blaming each other for the impasse.
Leading Republicans are accusing Senate Democrats of playing politics with national security by not allowing debate of the $40 billion Homeland Security funding bill, which, if passed, would block President Obama's immigration executive action.
We funded the Department of Homeland Security, and we stopped the president with regard to his executive actions. It's real clear. It's time for Senate Democrats to get into the game, get on the bill, and if they don't like what we've done, then they can amend it.
Texas Senator Ted Cruz shot down a suggestion from fellow conservative South Carolina Congressman Mick Mulvaney that the GOP should remove the filibuster to pass this bill.
The answer, I believe, is not to change the Senate rules. The answer is for Senate Democrats not to be obstructionists. And even more so, the answer is for Senate Democrats to be held accountable.
With the president threatening to veto the House measure, Democratic leader Nancy Pelosi showed no interest in a short-term funding fix.
The 2-month CR is a continuation of uncertainty, and they ought to just face the fact that this president has the right to do what he has done by executive action.
Homeland Security Secretary Jay Johnson has spent a great deal of time on Capitol Hill urging lawmakers to stop the finger-pointing.
That should be unacceptable. We need a fully funded Department of Homeland Security, and we need Congress to come together and figure a way through this impasse so that we get funding for our department.
Meanwhile, Illinois Republican Senator Mark Kirk, up for re-election in 2016, is calling for a clean funding bill, clearly concerned about the impact of a lapse at the end of the month. Still, the Senate Majority Leader called on Democrats to kick the gridlock habit.
They're filibustering Homeland Security funding for one reason, and that is to defend actions President Obama himself referred to as, quote, unwise and unfair, end quote.
Some Democrats have tried to pressure McConnell to take up just a straight Homeland Security funding bill. But of course, spending bills must originate in the House. Brett?
Mike Emanuel live on the Hill. Mike, thanks. Stocks were up today. The Dow gained 110. The S&P 500 finished ahead 20. The Nasdaq picked up 56. The president's moves on immigration are expected to bring a tidal wave of applicants. And that means a flood of paperwork and red tape. Tonight, correspondent Doug McKelway on what some feel is a bureaucratic disaster in the making.
It is the most ambitious federal rollout since Obamacare, so the administration hopes the May launch of DAPA, Deferred Action for Parents of Americans, will run more smoothly than the disastrous health care unveiling. The executive action would give amnesty to as many as 5 million adult illegal aliens.
The Deputy Secretary and I are very focused on this, and so I believe we're going to get it right.
The Department of Homeland Security has leased this massive office building outside of Washington, where 1,000 federal workers and 1,000 more contractors will process applications, expected to be as many as 1.3 million in the first 6 months alone. This centralized bureaucracy itself demonstrates to critics one of many flaws.
Those employees are not going to ask people from all over the country to come to Crystal City to be interviewed.
That's a recipe for fraud, says Sessions. Then there's the cost of DAPA, estimated at between $324 to $484 million over the next few years. Supporters note that taxpayers won't be footing that bill. Applicants will, through a $465 fee.
The program operates solely and exclusively on the funds that are contributed by those who participate in the program. 1 million of them apply, you have $500 million.
That's an absolute misrepresentation. Congress has the power to control all money.
Even with a fee-based payment, Sessions says the Immigration Service, already burdened by the wave of childhood arrivals, will be hard-pressed to carry out enforcement duties.
They've told us they're unable now to do the job.
Sessions warns that DAPA will lower wages in an already job-scarce economy, while Gutierrez says DAPA applicants toil at jobs that many Americans refuse to do.
Who does he really think is going to pick those onions in 110 degrees?
By coming out of the shadows through DAPA, many aliens might suddenly find themselves subject to the maze of tax laws, tax penalties, and benefits that U.S. citizens already face. A maze that may drive some back into the shadows. Brett?
Doug, thank you. Up next, from the president's success story to chaos, the latest on Yemen. First, here's what some of our Fox affiliates around the country are covering tonight. WRAL in Raleigh, North Carolina, as thousands gathered to remember 3 Muslim students gunned down Tuesday night in what is being described as a conflict over a parking space. Prayer and burial services were held in Raleigh and Chapel Hill. The suspect in this case has described himself as a gun-toting atheist. Fox 7 in Austin, big crowds inside and outside the state capitol as lawmakers discuss whether to legalize concealed handguns on college campuses and open carry everywhere else. It may surprise you to learn Texas is one of just 6 states that do not allow the open carrying of firearms. And this is a live look at Dallas from Fox 4, our affiliate there. Sunny Dallas. New testimony in the trial of the man accused of killing former Navy SEAL Chris Kyle and his friend. Prosecutors say Eddie Ray Routh shot the 2 men several times, mostly in the back. His attorney says Routh was in a severe state of psychosis. That's tonight's live look outside the Beltway from Special Report. We'll be right back.